Hi, my name's Liz. I'm 18 years old. I've been going to the waters for the past few years. And I'm gonna tell y'all a little bit about how I went to Egypt this past spring for a few months through an organization called YWAM. For a few months I got to study the Word and really got close with the Lord. And then they sent us to Egypt with a team of about 9 other students around my same age. So I got to Egypt and the first week went great. We were meeting so many different people. We worked with orphanages, we worked with refugees. We even went up to people in like a park and it went so amazing. But exactly a week after I got there, I fell in this cave and I tore a ligament in my ankle and was rushed to the hospital where I was put into a cast. And so unfortunately, it put a little bit of damper on my plans of what I thought Egypt was going to look like for me. After that, I had to miss out on a lot of ministries. I started being left at home a lot, and I started getting really overcome with anxiety. I started feeling like, should I even be here anymore? I came to Egypt to serve, and I can't even keep up with my team walking down the street. So I started really questioning of why I was there, or if I should even be there. And when I did go to ministries, I couldn't even talk. I was afraid to pray. I was afraid to talk out loud. I was afraid to start any conversation. Which, if you know me, that is not something that I usually struggle with. I'm usually very extroverted. I'm usually very easy to make friends. So a few weeks of going through this, praying to God, being like, God, why am I here? God, why am I feeling such anxiety when I go and meet people? I just kept praying like simple prayers like, God, will you please use me? God, will you please heal my anxiety, heal my mental processes through this? And so one night we were going to meet with some Syrian women who we'd never met before, and people coming from Syria have come from really, really hard times. It is also a primarily Muslim country. But there we get to speak very freely about Christianity, get to talk to them, really get to encourage them in what that God didn't want you to feel that kind of pain, that God still loves you. So we went there and we met with this woman who was so joyful, and she kept talking to us about all these experiences she had with Jesus, how these dreams that she saw, and it was such an open conversation. It flowed so well. So on the way to the Syrian house visits, we were on the bus and we were getting ready to get out. We were saying some prayers. I was like, God, if there's anything you really want to talk to me about, God, please use me in this experience. I suddenly felt this pain in my knees, and I don't have knee pain, so this was very not normal. And it started hurting, and suddenly I heard the word knees in my head. And I kind of put it on the back burner. I was like, okay, maybe that'll be for tonight. I'll just kind of think about it later. And so when we're talking with this woman, Bushra, she's telling us all these amazing stories of how she's having dreams of Jesus. She's telling us like the way God has worked in her life, and the conversation flowed so well until her cousin walked in, and suddenly the talk of Jesus stopped. It was very clear that this woman was very Muslim, and she didn't like the talk of Jesus. She wasn't very kind to us, and we didn't know how we should continue this conversation. But in my head, when she walked in, I immediately knew that this was why God put the word knees in my head. I was a little scared to speak up about it. I looked at the translator and was like, I know this may sound really weird, but can you ask her about her knees? Like, is she having some pain in her knees? And even the translator looked at me a little weird, but she's like, yeah, I can ask. And she asked the woman, she's very uptight, she's sitting very straight. And she asked her, is there any problem with your knees? And the woman's whole posture changed. She was very shocked. She was like, yes, I've had pain in my knees for months that hasn't gone away, and I can't figure out how to help out. And so immediately we were like, can we please pray for you? And I said that pretty risky. I wasn't convinced that she would say yes to that, but she did say yes. And she even came and sat right next to me on the floor, and I put the blanket that was on me over her, and me and one other girl put our hands on her, and we began to pray over her knee. Very simple English prayer. We were like, God, I pray that you would heal her knees. And we said that in Jesus' name. And at the end of the prayer, we looked at her and we're like, how do your knees feel? And She stood up and she was very confused, and then she started stomping her feet very aggressively but very happy like, and she was like, they're healed in Arabic, and she's telling us, she's smiling and she's freaking out to us, and she sat back down and immediately her whole posture changed. She began to lean into me. She was calling me beautiful, saying Gamila, saying how beautiful I was and how happy she was that we were there. We left after that, and our whole team was suddenly filled with this joy, but even I felt like God had really used me. God answered that prayer that I prayed of God, use me. And after that night, we had about 5 more weeks left of this time in Egypt. I didn't feel any kind of anxiety anymore. Every conversation, I was the first one to speak up. I was the first one to introduce myself. And at the end of every conversation, I was the one saying, can I please pray for you? God completely changed my whole perspective. God used me. God even used my injury, despite me thinking that I no longer was someone that God wanted to use. God did through me, even though I didn't even know what I was doing. So it was a very simple prayer that I prayed over this woman, but it was an act of obedience that I felt that God was asking from me. I might have looked stupid. I might have put myself in jeopardy of being more of a burden to my team, but I acted in obedience and asked that woman if her knees needed to be healed. And in that, afterwards, God saw my obedience, and I really believe that He answered my prayer in that moment, that I suddenly had this newfound confidence in God that He could use me. And so I walked in that confidence, and God did, in fact, heal me of any kind of struggles I was doing, and even healed me physically from my injury. So I encourage you that if you ever hear this little word of advice from God, if you ever hear this weird, like, hey, you should tell that person that they're doing okay, or you look really beautiful today, or can I pray for you in some way? Those things look very small, but I encourage you to walk in steps of obedience that may not seem like they make any sense to you now, but God will definitely use you if you just ask in a simple prayer. So thank you.